need to remember something.
Okay, well, thank you all so much. And Dr. Phoenix, I'll let you take it away.
All right. Well, I'm just setting a little timer here so that I keep us on track. Yeah, I think we want to be super informal. I'm just going to tell you a minute about how I got where I'm at so you kind of know where I'm coming from. I have been let's see, this is like my 33rd year as a social worker, but only my 8th year as a teacher. So this is like a second phase of my social work. So I'm a clinical social worker, and the majority of my work has been like in hospice, trauma, grief, and I have a private practice along with it. Why this is important, I'll get to. Um, so I teach both online and on campus, but really primarily have been teaching online in the master's program and primarily the elders course because I wrote it, and there's not a whole bunch of elder specialists. So that's where I'm at, and that's what I bring to the table. But what I'd first like to know is if y'all just tell me what made you interested to come tonight, what are you hoping to get out of it? And let's do that first.
Sure. So I decided to come and join because I am finishing up my PhD courses this summer, and so I know it's important to start looking for a job or look into the job market. But before I do that, like I need to know what are some of the skills that they'll be looking for. What are some of the things that I should have ready that what are they going to ask for? Are they going to ask for a certain type of resume, letters? I don't really know exactly what they'll be asking for a job when going into teaching. So I'm just here to learn and get some ideas and start getting ready.
Okay. Well, I'm going to cover some of those pieces tonight about the teaching and how to be prepared. And I think that Dr. Hawley-Bernardez um, has another session that talks about, I know we're doing like an interview prep and all of that, but
Mhm.
I'll answer what I can along the way, if that's helpful. How about you, Danielle?
I just am interested in one, just getting some very good teaching pointers as I'm teaching an online class now in the program, and just always just looking to grow and develop as this is as I move into this profession. I'm a first year, so this is my second semester. Well, outside of the summer, but my second full semester in the program.
Okay. So you and Carol are kind of at different spaces, but Carol, have you taught? Have you been doing teaching here?
So, I've done a little bit for my local school, my undergrad, but I'm starting to teach some classes for Lou this summer. I'll probably stay with them the whole year.
Okay.
And I think my only regret is really not getting into it earlier.
Okay. Well, you're getting into it. So let's just jump off there. Like one of the pieces that I think this program offers you all is the ability to get some experience teaching online because right now and this is like Kathy research, right? So I don't have any citations to throw at you at the moment. But one of my other hats is I'm the chair of the Social Work Distance Ed Conference, which is a national conference, and you guys are going to be hearing about it because it's something that you're definitely, I think, going to want to be involved in. But so I deal with universities from all over the United States, and because we are social work distance ed, right? The whole focus is about distance learning on all levels. And what I'm really seeing this year, because I've done it, I think 5 years or something like that, is just the huge continued buildup of online programs. I think that the pandemic showed us that out of desperation, those that were naysayers had to do it, and now they're realizing, there is attributes to online teaching. And so there's a lot of new MSW programs coming out, lots of competition. Let me put it that way. Lots of competition is happening. So I feel that as you all, as future academia, if you're wanting to teach, you're going to need to have experience with online teaching. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it.
No, no,
Um,
I agree.
yeah, most definitely. And so, one of the things that I can say about teaching online with OLU, especially in the MSW program, we were among the first. So we've had a lot of growing and a lot of learning. When our program started, we had 30 students, and in 3 years, we went up to 800 students, which was insane. And we were all like, whoops, what happened? And so we've had to learn a lot through the process. So I feel that by teaching in the OLU program, you're going to see glitches, but you're also going to see that there's a lot of things done well. Where if you interview at a school that is maybe just starting an OLU, starting a program, and you say you've taught in the OLU SWD, I mean the OLU, online MSW program. I think with a lot of these universities, because OLU is the host of this national conference, there's going to be recognition there. So I think if we're speaking of CVs, definitely teaching some classes through here online would be great. So what class are you teaching, Danielle?
I teach the policy course, the Policy One course in the foundation year for first year students.
Okay. And so if I were to say, what comes to your mind about your first experience? What's the best thing that's happened or that you feel the most confident about?
One, that the class is built out and it has,
Yes.
because teaching a class for the first time and learning the material as well as with the students, I think it's very helpful of having the class being built out and having the prompts to be able, when you need to do your video for the week, just having those things so that you have that. And the resources, like I think my classes has a lot of great resources and examples, even for assignments for people to do, and the rubrics, because then it helps with the grading. So I really just like how structured and built out the class is just in general.
Okay. Yeah, that's a really good point. So let's see, Javier joined us, and you can just jump in the conversation. We're just having a real laid back conversation. So then, Carol, did you say you've taught some online or primarily on campus? You're on mute.
Sorry, I did one online for Intro to Social Work at my local university, but it was just a couple classes, kind of like substituting. And
Mhm.
then I did another one. It was advanced practice 2, and that was on campus. And it was the same thing, just substituting when the teacher was gone.
Sure, which is a difficult thing to do. I mean, I give you kudos for that. I started as adjunct here, just dipping my toe in the water, going, I think I want to transition, but I'm not quite sure. And it is difficult as adjunct. I think and it's not like I'm here to promote everybody to teach in the OLU program, but you're our students. So I'm going to be honest. Here you have like a safety net of colleagues. We are your colleagues in teaching, and so many people you can reach out to. When you start at a new university, even especially if you start adjunct, you can feel like a duck totally out of water because you don't know the systems, you don't know the LMS, the learning management system, and it can be a little bit difficult for sure. So then, Danielle, if I was to ask you, what do you think your biggest challenge is right now? What do you think?
Um, I think probably initially when I had some because we're in week 7 now, so I'm kind of we're
Finishing
kind
up.
of
We're
we're kind of
finishing
finishing up.
yes.
But when I because of course I had office hours and things, and I did virtual sessions with some students. But when I had some very ambitious students who were moving forward, and they were asking me about assignments that was down the road that I haven't that I didn't even have a chance to look at, and I was
Right.
like, oh, let me get that, let me look and see. So just being prepared that way. But the good thing, I had printed out all of the things, and I just was trying to read through it. So that was just a challenge of, again, just being new and teaching the class and not knowing all of the, the different elements. But I think, of course, if I teach this class again, I'm very familiar with it and, know what to expect out of it now.
Mhm. Oh yeah, and I'm telling you, I ran into that myself this semester. One of the classes I'm teaching is I haven't taught it in like 2 years, and I taught it on campus. And so it's a mixed blessing when you have eager beaver students. One piece of it is, come on, just wait a minute, let me figure it out. But the other piece is they identified issues for me. Like they asked a question and I went in and went, they're absolutely right. This link is broken, or those instructions do not make sense. And so I could kind of say, oh, thank you so much for bringing that to my attention. Let me check with the designers. Meanwhile, in the background, I'm going, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? How do I change it up? Right. So
Yep.
that's a really good point. And um, uh, Dr. Hawley-Bernardez put a comment in the chat that I think is a really good point. So when we talk about the LMS, and I don't want to repeat something you already know, but that's the learning management system. And so like at Olu, we have two. We have Blackboard and we have Engage. And so I will tell you that I love teaching and Engage. The things I love better about it is that the classes are already built and we worked in partnership with designers. So that's the positive. In Blackboard, we're working on getting them built out. Let me put it that way. But it doesn't transition as easy. But also in Engage, you don't have as much flexibility. There's some things you can't change, like because it's a link that's templated in and saved on an outside server that the designers put in. So I can't just go in and change some things. Some things you can, some things you can't. So there's kind of pros and cons to that. But I think what about the learning management systems, if you're talking about going to other universities, it's good when you can say, I worked in Blackboard, which is one of the most common, right? Canvas is one of them, but the term Moodle is it's a type of platform that can be molded. So like Engage is a Moodle program, but Engage is built specifically by Wiley, if that makes sense. I think I'm using the right terminology on that. So yes, learning management system is going to be really important to get exposed to as many different kinds as you can. The other thing is the difference, like our Blackboard, I got my doctorate from Capella online, and they use Blackboard too, but it was like, I mean, I'll be honest, it was like a dream as a student. It was like so perfectly designed, and my books were preloaded in the class, and it was, but as an instructor, they didn't have much flexibility. They had to teach it exactly that way. So the PhD classes, I'm not teaching in the PhD program. Is yours in Blackboard? Okay.
Yes.
So learning in a system is helpful if you end up like teaching in the online BSW program, that's in Blackboard. So, and Javier, I don't want to make you talk, but I don't want you to feel left out of the conversation either. So you pop in or give me a thumbs up if you're good. Make sure you're with us and you're not somebody like floating in observing.
No, no. I've been using Engage. I'd be very interested to learn how to use Blackboard, but so far I've only used Engage. I was teaching the psychopathology class for the master level.
Okay.
Very interesting, kind of like what Danielle was saying with her experience. I also had a couple of students who had I think one of them was anticipating to have a baby, and so she moved up really fast and was like a bunch of questions were coming in, and like you said, these courses are already preloaded, so there was a lot of errors, a lot of like misinformation or some things that weren't clarified correctly. So I had to go in there and be like, oh shoot, okay, let me go and read and see what's going on, like what links are broken, how do I fix it? So it's very interesting, a very great 7 weeks, but like Danielle, I'm kind of ready for this to end.
Yes, y'all, I am so too. And week 7 is like this grading frenzy, right? Because we have to turn grades in by Tuesday, and I'm like, ugh. A lot of weekends after week 7 are spent not fun. But anyway, so I think one of the points that we brought out is learning the different learning management systems. So that's going to be important. And also in your job interviews, it's good to showboat what you've used, right? Then one of the other things that I'm wondering too, so when you first teach a class, you're theoretically you've read everything ahead of time, and yeah, that just doesn't happen because it's like, oh, we need this class covered, and you take it. So what you're sharing, Javier and Danielle, is like exactly the way it is probably most of the time. But eventually when you get settled and you get to teach a class more than once, there's some things that I know I have done that make it a lot less stressful. And I know not just me, I know all of the faculty have great tips. But one of the things, and Dr. Hawley-Bernardez and I have this in common, we like to, you're supposed to do a weekly video, right, to your students. And what we really like to do is like a mini lecture. And I'll tell you, on my student evaluations that I get back, that's one of the things that makes me shine. Like they're, oh my gosh, it was so helpful, because they're taking an online class, but like the PhD, you guys have some synchronicity classes. Synchronicity. Synchronous courses, right? But the MSW program, there's never anything that's synchronous, right? So they're never live with the other students or with you, unless they set up an appointment, right? Unless you have a virtual deal. So what I have, especially the course, that I teach multiple sections of at once, I set up in my, I have a Google Drive, whatever you guys use. And each week I have it set what my video is, a copy of my announcement that I have to tweak, but it's ready to copy and paste, tweak the dates, tweak that sort of thing. And so the more you can plan ahead is great. Now, this 7 weeks, I taught that class that I haven't, and I was like by Wednesday frantically going through the readings and pulling out some type of little mini presentation that I knew would help feed them information to help them on their assignments. Because the other reality, and again, I don't want to say what your experience is, but mine as an online, when I was getting my doctorate, I did not have time to read every single thing that was there, but I was frantic that I was going to miss something. And so it was helpful when I had professors that said, these readings really align with this assignment piece, and these readings really help support. So I try to do that for my students too. So they know what to prioritize. For sure, you better read this or your assignment is not going to be done properly. I don't know if that's good guidance or not, but that's some recommendations. What have you all had students that were, how can we use strengths-based wording? Antagonistic. Challenging, yes, especially like if you have a group assignment. I had a student text message me and said, I am not going to be able to stay in this group because it's not good for my mental health. I'm like, that's a much bigger statement than you've told me. We need, I know we need to talk in person. And And basically, she'd had one of the students in the group in another class, and she didn't want to work with that student. Well, there's some we can do and there's some we can't do. Because in the real world, when you're working as a social worker, you don't get to pick and choose. You know, a part of social work is learning how to work with colleagues. So have any of you ever run into that sort of situation?
Hi. So I did very early on. I think it was the second week of this semester. I had two. It was a group of three, and I had the two members email me about one of the group members that weren't being very effective in their assignment, and wasn't communicating, and was just doing things a little bit late. So I had to set a meeting with the student individually, and then these other two people, the other two students as well, to discuss what the issues that they were experiencing, but to also meet with the student and understand what was the barriers to for them. Was it like familial problems, personal problems, just not having access to certain things? So I was able to figure it out. It's just that they weren't connecting very well. So I had to meet with another student who was also experiencing the same thing with their group. And luckily, I was just able to switch those two students around. And after that, it worked very well. And there was no issues or concerns. So I was very, very, very scary to kind of start, kind of navigate by yourself, because it's just like, yes, we have a mentor, but it's something that needs to be fixed fast because another assignment's due the next week. And it's like, okay, we got to make an executive decision kind of thing. So that's the way I approached it, and it worked really well. So I was very grateful that happened.
That is an awesome example, and gosh, I'm in awe. I think that was a tremendous way to handle it. Sometimes you don't get to get them all in the same place at the same time that quickly, so that's great. And here's why it is, you're absolutely right. It's very good to address it up front when they bring it to your attention, because if it gets down to the end and then that assignment comes in and it's group grading, right? So you assign a grade, and let's say it's a 75 because they were missing items. Then you're having to deal with, it's week 7, you've already posted grades, and they're saying, oh no, they didn't work. Do you know what I'm trying to say on this? Like, a ounce of prevention's worth a pound of cure, whatever that saying is. But so Javier, that's awesome that you jumped straight in. One of the things that I have to almost always do every semester is I'll have someone each week. I'm telling them, so this is week 2. Here's what you heard in the information. Here's how it applies in one of the classes I teach. They build each week for this big case study, right? So I'm prompting them each week. Should have been meeting with your group, but this time you're discussing this. That usually gets people to send me a message of, we haven't been able to connect with our third person, or they're not responding. So one of the things I ask them is, how do you want to handle it? Like, first off, because they're master's level students and they may have a better idea on how they want to handle it. One of the things that I do a lot of times is say, why don't you email the full group and CC me on it? And 90% of the time, as soon as my name gets put on a CC, that member that hasn't communicated all of a sudden pops in and it's solved. So don't underestimate the power of having the professor on the email chain. That's just one suggestion.
I'm
In
currently
this,
taking, I'm sorry.
no, please go ahead.
I'm currently taking scholarly writing and publishing, and one of the things that we had to do we're working as a group, and one of the things that we had to do was create and sign a contract saying that we will be meeting every Monday from 6 to 7 p.m. We will be going over our assignments. Everyone's going to participate. If you don't participate, these are the consequences, or we can schedule to meet on a following day. And then we all had to sign it and send it to the professor. And I thought about using that technique when I teach if I have groups.
I love that idea. I love that idea, and I think it probably works really well in y'all's PhD program.
It does.
because there's some different expectations. And what I mean by that is in our online program, we have students in every state and on military bases around the world. So if I've got somebody stationed in Germany and
That's
somebody
understandable.
that lives in California, we're not going to be able to come to an actual time and place. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
But I like that idea. I like, I mean, you have to see if it fits with with
right.
where, how you're teaching. Um, I think one of the things, it's helpful, but I'm not 100% happy with how I set it up. But in this group project, in their reflection paper, they rate themselves and they rate their other people. And there's a scale and it kind of shows on involvement. And most of the time, I can tell, most of the time, people will never say anything bad about their teammates. Even if they probably didn't help, they don't say anything. But if they do, um, I try to kind of address it and say, you know, these points were off and I'm really hearing this, and try to figure out, because I don't think it's fair if there truly is a team member that was not functioning properly, that the rest of the team should be dinged for it if it was the other person's responsibility. I think there's only been once that I've had to do that, and it was a crazy situation where the student claimed, "Oh no, I did my portion," and she emailed me a portion, but this other student had already turned that portion in almost 12 days earlier. So I knew it wasn't this other student's portion. So this was a bigger issue than just this student not being involved. This was a student that plagiarized somebody else's work, and I had proof of it because she had sent it to me prior. So that was that's probably the worst situation I had to deal with in a group project on that. So before I jump to another topic, what other things have you all dealt with that you might want to discuss or get input on?
So I sorry to build off of what you were saying. So one of the things I did do when I encountered those students that were not working well together, that was a great time for me to utilize. And I'm not 100% sure why I utilized it right now off the top of my head, but it was a great teaching moment to utilize ethics. So I brought forth the code of ethics because I think something had happened amongst them that was not ethical, and I think they were just I think they came to me right away was the situation rather than trying to fix it with a person. And I took a great example. I'm like, okay, this is an educational setting. Like, yes, it's great. You know, they came to me because it is your grade. It is about functionality and everything. But I also reminded them, like, if this was like a real world setting, what would you do? And they're like, well, I'll go straight to my supervisor. It's like, well, no. Like, code of ethics wise, you would want to approach it with that person, see what's going on, address it with them, let them know what your concern is. If it still doesn't get fixed, then you come to your supervisor. So I was able to kind of just throw in the code of ethics and just help them kind of remember, like, even if you're a student, you're a master level student and you already have these code of ethics that you should be following and should be addressing each and every step of the way.
Mhm. That's such an excellent point. And I think that although they are students, the code of ethics needs to be used constantly with them. Like that's a part of the learning, and that going to your colleague is vital. There's been a situation where somebody said it wasn't in a class, but it was amongst students of something that I work with, and they said, I think they're being, you know, they're a victim of domestic abuse and all of this stuff, and so they like brought it to us. And so I had to say, have you presented your concern to them? Like, have you given them the honor and respect? Because it was kind of jumping to come to report it to a professor, although it was important. It puts us in an awkward spot because we're not clinicians, right? So it's like, oh, now I'm going to need to report it to this and report it to, you know, there's a lot of different areas on that. So yeah, absolutely. And Dr. Hawley-Bernardez put in there that she's having major problems with plagiarism. I've had a lot of plagiarism issues too. There's a lot of, papers being sold, and it shocked me that I could Google my class, like 7332, social work 7332, and the name of the assignment, and papers were popping up right and left that are being, I don't know, sold through different sites or shared. But the thing of it is that the Turnitin catches a lot of that. And so have you all, you have Turnitin on your own assignments too, right? In the PhD program? Or is it something different? Do you know what I'm talking about when I say Turnitin?
I know what you're talking
Yeah.
about. I was actually going to ask about that. I know they use it for my husband's school, and he's in a PhD program, and that's where I learned about it.
Yeah, I've seen it in the MSW program now, but I haven't seen it in the PhD courses. I maybe I just missed it, but I haven't seen it.
Okay. So do you, Danielle, on the assignments that you see it in your MSW program, do you use that as a guide?
Mhm.
So,
And then
what,
I will. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
well, no, tell us how you use that. Like, so
Well,
it shows up and there's a 20% or like,
yeah.
what's your guidelines?
So if I see one that, of course, is really high, at first, first paper, of course, I went through all of them because I just wanted to see how it looked and everything. But especially if I had a student who won, it was 49%, and then I had another student where it was like 61%. And so I had to reach out to them, and then we talked about it, and I got them to resubmit it because I just was like, well, maybe, if you are using, or you have to make sure that you're going, because I can see where they tried to give um, the citations, but they just didn't do it properly. So I can see where they tried to do some things, and it
Like,
just
didn't put
wasn't.
the page numbers that, like, if it's exact quotes and there's not a
Yeah.
page number, it
Hmm.
triggers. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, just talked about that and then gave them some resources. If I sent them to, like, if it was used in Purdue OWL or other places, and I tell them how they can check it. They want to check it too before they submit their papers. But I have used it in my class.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Dr. Phoenix, I'm
Mm-hmm.
blaming you for this problem. I literally
Uh,
just Googled my class and I found a student posted her paper. Current student who posted her paper online for sale for my class. Literally right now.
I didn't even know that existed.
I
Mm-hmm.
did not either.
Yeah. How I even stumbled across it was in a previous semester. One of the assignments in my elders class is they interview a social worker that works with Hispanic elders, right? So that's kind of unique, right? Because it's going to have an agency name. It's going to have like it's not like a. And so this semester it happened again too. All of a sudden it said 99%, and I'm like, did they submit it and then resubmit it again? Sorry. Or what happened? So when I opened it up, literally the only thing changed was her name and the date. The name of the social worker is the same, the agency is the same, and it shows you in the column where that came from. It was 99%, and it said another student submitted to OLLU, right? Or however the verbiage is. So this seemed very out of the ordinary for the student, but so what I do is when that happens, I immediately put a 0 and say I'm unable to grade this due to the high percentage. I attach the report and I say we need to have a conversation. Please contact me. Right? I put it on their shoulders. And I mean, the second you throw a 0 or something like that into the grading thing, I mean, they call you like right away or contact me. And so when I spoke with her, she was just, oh, I did borrow a paper, but because I was going to use it as a point of reference, and was gonna first, like, she had all this explanation, and she said, and I uploaded the wrong one. And I said,
I have heard that exact same thing.
right? And I said, well, so then the good thing is you have the right one that you can upload then now.
Right now.
Yeah. And she said, I'm at work, but I can get it uploaded within 2 hours. So in my head, I'm like, either she's going to write a really crappy paper, right? If they created it from scratch and uploaded it into, because of it was like an 8-page type deal. Because on this one, it just seemed out of the ordinary for her because I'd seen all this other work. But so she did upload one. She had interviewed the same person. I did see that the students were from the same location. The paper was very different, and I didn't feel that I could I'm like, there was enough doubt. Like, she got the paper uploaded in time. It was different enough. But I, in a conversation with her, I said, you need to know that I trust your abilities. You don't need to look at somebody else's paper to write your own. You have your own abilities. And this was someone that I could tell had struggled with their writing and had probably been going to the writing center. I can kind of begin to see rhythms of those that go to the writing center because they really kind of follow the tutorial pattern. And so on that one, I gave her a break because I had to trust my gut. And I was like, if she scammed me, and it was uploaded like within an hour and a half, maybe, I'm like, if she scammed me, then shame on me. But then there's been other times when students gave me this whole big long song and dance, and I just didn't believe it. And I said, well, no problem. Then I can go ahead and email. Let me have the email to the person you interviewed, and we'll just verify. So I had a student, then she just claps. Okay. And then she starts crying. I was under stress and I was under whatever. And I said, okay, I get that, but I'm going to have to do an academic, violation. And I'm not going to accept this assignment. If you find a whole nother social worker and interview a whole nother one, I'll give you a max of 75% so that you get something. Because it was a huge assignment, huge part of the assignment. And then another time that happened, and I said, I'll email, because it felt like the same kind of thing. Like, I teach so many sections of the elders class, but I'm like, I've seen this paper before. I've seen this, and I couldn't figure it out. And it said it had been uploaded. So they gave me the name of that person. I emailed him. It was a social worker. And even after this person had broke down and told me, no, I didn't do it, he emailed me back and said, oh, yeah, I interviewed with her. I was so livid. I'm like, he was lying. He's a social worker. He's that. Why are you going to lie for a student? You're like, anyway, so it does get very crazy. And you go down a rabbit hole. Like, it's a rabbit hole, but you have to go down it to help them learn, because like we tell them, like, if I were to fudge on my Medicare notes, I could lose my license. I could owe thousands of dollars back to an insurance company. Like, you have to understand the importance that it's not just an assignment, right? So Javier, have you run into that at all?
So I haven't run into any situation where a patient, oh my goodness, I'm still in work mode, a student has plagiarized, but I did encounter a situation where a student said that their grandparent had just died, and I was like, okay. But she was really good about turning in all her assignments. Everything was on time. Her work was always exceptional. I had no problem with it. So I was like, okay, you have an extension until Tuesday. Give you some time to travel and grieve a little bit, kind of process and work on it. Because she was one of the ones who was turning in stuff a little bit early and was on top of everything. And so I recently just checked in on her on Monday, just to see how she was doing, and she was extremely grateful that I took the time to remember that she was experiencing that, and was just kind of let me in and let me know that she was dealing with grief and she was seeking mental health services to help her process. And she just thanked me for taking the time out of my day to just follow up with her. So I haven't experienced that, but I did experience the whole situation where I had to trust my gut and be like, okay, you know what? This student has not given me any warrant to not trust her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that brings up and maybe in our last amount of time here, we can talk about unique situations like ADA accommodations. And during this COVID period, just this 7 weeks has been a nightmare because in both of the classes I'm teaching, they have to get role plays. One is an elder, another one is a family. That's a whole nother thing. I think that's ridiculous. But anyway, they'd commit, and then somebody gets COVID and they can't be in the same room at the same time, or they can't. And finally, I just had to say, this is happening throughout the whole world. It happened in my own family. My daughter and her fiance were living here. They both get COVID, even though we're all boosted, we're all vaccinated. It just happens, right? And so they're living in one side of the house. I'm living in I get it. And so sometimes we have to just be human, right? And so it's very hard. How do you challenge somebody? No, your grandmother didn't die. Even if I don't believe them, there has to be a level of us being human. So one of the things I do try is that if I make exemptions, I make them across the board, right? So with this whole deal, I've had, I don't know, at least 70% of the class has had COVID issues in both of them. I have to get a different volunteer, I have to get a different social worker. And I've just kind of said, I want you to have the learning experience. So I don't care if you have to get a group of your friends on a Zoom call and they role play a family. Here's what I need to see in the video. I need to see you using 3 theoretical models. I need to see you using. So sometimes we have to adapt with what's happening around us. The recommendation that I have really found with ADA accommodations is you get a letter. Have either of you that are teaching, Danielle or Javier, had students with ADA accommodations yet?
No, not that I haven't.
Okay.
I did, yes.
Okay, so then what you do is within the first week you'll get a letter email that's from the student success, or I remember what the title is at the moment. And it CCs the student, and it doesn't tell you, why they have these accommodations, which would be very inappropriate, but it just lists. And so it might say extra time on tests, or leniency with due dates and that sort of thing. But in the letter, it tells the student it's the student's responsibility to connect with the instructor to review what accommodations, how they apply to the assignments in this class. I'll tell you what I have found is, this is my own opinion and everybody has their own, so it's not necessarily the only. But I have found that a lot of my students with accommodations are really, there's a level of embarrassment to have to say I have this accommodation. And so I try to decrease that by, as soon as I get the letter, I have this kind of template email that I personalize and just basically say, I'm glad I got this information. I'd really like to meet with you to talk about your learning style and how I can best support it. So I'm already saying, you don't have a disability, you just learn differently, and I just need to understand how to support you. And so I asked them, please review the syllabus, and then I have a link where they can click and make their appointment with me through Calendly. And I found that probably 70% do make an appointment, and then I know ahead of time what's needed. If they don't, and they turn in an assignment late, I expect them to reach out to me, or I'm going to grade it without an accommodation, because we didn't discuss that you were going to need an extension for this specific assignment. So that's just some thoughts to be aware of, I guess. I don't know if that's helpful. And I'm going to say the majority of my people probably have ADHD or PTSD or anxiety that impacts their ability to process at times, right? So maybe they need extra time to be able to take a little bit at a time. And so I try to be very mindful of that. And I have to say, my daughter, she's a special ed teacher, but she also has ADHD and anxiety, and had accommodations she's an OLU graduate, had accommodations all the way through, and it helped me be compassionate seeing her side of it. That it wasn't there was lack of motivation, it was just her brain worked differently sometimes, and she just needed a little bit of a little bit of grace, right? I think we all need a little bit of grace sometimes, regardless. But so that's my little timer to tell me we have like 5 minutes left. Is there anything specific? I mean, I'm hoping this was helpful. If there's anything more specific that we'd like to touch on in our last minutes.
Well, something that I learned is that people can sell their assignments online. That's super new to me. So, um, you said we can just look it up on Google by typing the class?
That's what I did. And I'm telling you, there's no rhyme or reason. There were some different sites. And I have to tell you, when I brought it up, so my son and daughter are in their like late 20s, right? So they graduated like 3 years ago, 5 years ago. So I'm like, can you believe this? And they're like, duh, mom. I'm like, well, do not tell me you used it. Like, I don't want to have to disown you and give you an academic violation from mom. And they're like, of course not, mom. We would never do that. But yeah, I think there is. I have to admit, though, that I'm sure people get over on us all the time. My personal opinion is I can't spend all my energy trying to find the cheaters, because you're paying your tuition. And if you are cheating and it's not something that I can catch through our tools, then that's on you. That's my opinion. Because I have students in the class that want to learn, and I want to give all my energy there. If someone says, I'd like extra input on this, sure, I'm going to take my time and do that. But if it's slapping me in the face, like 99% on the Turnitin report, that's, kind of there. So food for thought.
I don't usually look it up. I just happened to look it up just now.
Right. Just to see that it's, and doesn't it give you an ooky feeling? I had to quit searching because I was just appalled. I was just appalled.
Yeah.
And like I said, some of the assignments I do or that they do for my elders class are so personalized. Like interviewing a social worker where you're talking about their education. Anyway.
So what do you do when you deal with a student? How do you deal with the student who does that? Even she's not using someone else's assignment, but she's selling her assignment.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never come across that. Dr. Hawley-Bernardez, I mean, you're in it. I mean, it's almost as if it needs to be you've found it out, so it's an academic violation. Like, what do you think?
I think it's going to be an academic violation, and I'm sure there's going to be a fitness to practice probably too.
Right, because this one, so if it's just a paper and it's one assignment, I have failed the assignment and not failed them in the class. Like if right, so that can happen. But this is different. This is an ethical.
Yeah.
Yes. It's outside of just not quoting, copying and pasting something and not giving someone credit for it. This is way out. So I'm imagining, yes.
I copied Tiffany, and I'm going to hope Tiffany tells me what to do.
I mean, I'd be interested, and maybe next time you and I meet Dr. Hawley-Bernardez, maybe we can go over it because, like I said, my mind is kind of blown right now. I had no idea that people were doing this. And it's like, what if I come across something like that? How am I going to deal with it? What's the proper way, proper channel to address it?
I think that's a great question because, and this is why it's so important that as colleagues, we have these conversations, because this would have never probably gotten caught if we weren't discussing it. And and she looked at, like, I've never looked to see. So what I have found is it says that a student, like in fall B21 or something, like in the Turnitin, it doesn't tell you the name of the student. Unfortunately for my elder students, that sometimes I teach 3 sections at a time. So I'll just go into the different sections, right? And then I can figure out uh, what student was there. And I was doing some of that, and then I realized, but why? Like, I haven't found them selling it, but yeah, they're obviously getting up there somewhere.
So we have a standard, academic violation form that we submit and fill out, and then it's most of the time kind of at the instructor's discretion, I think, for how to handle plagiarism. Like Kathy said, I've given zeros for that assignment, and a very, 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 very stern talking to that if it happens again, you will fail the entire class. And that's usually what I tend to do.
Letting them know the academic violation is now on their school record. Now, after they graduate, it's not like anybody can come back and get it. So I try to give reassurance, because most of the time, except that one time, the students end up being so remorseful and tearful and feel like their world is over and that they've let their family down. And a lot of times it's been students who are, single parents working full time, first generation, and are just trying to get things done. And I'm not saying that's an excuse, but I'm saying that's the excuse they've told themselves. And so I don't want to beat them up any farther. I mean, but I hold their feet to the fire. Like, so a lot of times telling them this academic violation is going in onto your student record, they're like devastated. We know that if they get multiple ones, then the academic affairs where the results are going, they're going to be triggering it. Because I don't know if it happens in Danielle's class and then Javier's class and then my class, I'm not going to know about y'all's classes, right? So that's why it is important to put the academic violation in so that it can be tracked in the system if they're getting multiple ones. I'd like to think that most of these, once they get caught once and we take it serious and really address it, I'd like to hope that it curbs that behavior, but maybe that's just the social worker in me.
Yeah. I mean, and I think you make a great point of like, we cannot, I cannot sit here and police every single assignment, every single semester. I mean, you do the best that you can with the Turnitin. I look to make sure, if it's anything above 30%, my eyebrows are kind of raised, I'm a little, I check it. Usually less than 20%, it's, like it's weird. If you haven't seen it, then you'll see what I mean. But I use, the turnitin.com, score that comes back, and then or safe assign is what Blackboard uses. And otherwise, I just, this is their degree, and if this is how they're going to live their life, I know I cannot be the police to every single student's assignment.
I'm gonna just real quickly here, in case it might be helpful,
Maybe drop the link.
am I sharing? Can you
Yes.
see this Turnitin report?
Oh, no, we see your Cafecitos tips for online instruction.
Oh, I'm sorry. I shared the wrong screen.
That's
Good
okay.
thing I was professional and didn't have anything bad on there.
That looks very professional to
Tip
me.
for online teaching. Be careful what you have on your screen while you're teaching. Okay, screen 2. There we go. See, I hate WebEx. Okay.
Yep.
So now Let me get our pictures off of there. So here's that one that's when it came up. Hold on a second. I'm gonna So here's the one, and I'm doing kind of a violation because you see the student's name. Whoop. Okay, now you don't. It came up 99%, right? And you see here, Olu Wiley on January 28th of 2022, it was submitted. It was 98% copied of that. And then if you come down and you're scrolling through, it highlights. So what's in blue, number one, is from that paper. And here's where it got me right here. So here she changed the university was this. Oops, I showed the student again. Okay, sorry.
I missed
You
it
forgot
both
all
times,
about
so.
that. Yeah. Okay. So you see here, oops, look, everything. The only thing white was the date and her name.
Wow.
Everything else is 100%, right?
Wow.
So then here's the other one she resent. It was 42%. But when I looked through, like here, she should have changed that up a little bit more. And I took off points for it. But do you see how now it's more like the name of the agency? Like this, she probably got off the website describing what United Healthcare was. But you see how it looks, it looks different. This, I think, is all from the website. So I had a discussion with her on that, but that's a different story if it's copied like from the website and they didn't cite it. Because if I look up United Healthcare, sometimes I'll copy and paste a clump of information and drop it in Google. And if it's exact, it'll come up and it'll show you where it came out of, right? So anyway, I don't know if that's helpful.
Gosh, we almost need a whole Cafecitos event on plagiarism kind of thing.
And this was an interesting conversation.
Kathy, you're,
And
you're
yeah.
muted for some reason now.
For me?
Kathy.
Oh.
Probably because I was on mute. So you didn't hear me talking all that time?
Well, yeah,
Yes.
we heard you about the paper. It was just
Okay.
you closed your screen.
Okay, see? Anyway, so yeah, I guess there's a lot of things to look at, but maybe in synopsis, we are instructors, but we also are social workers. And so we do have the right to be able to, if we have somebody that we know is going through a difficult time, and this is just my opinion, but if you've communicated with me, I'm going to give everybody the same sort of leniency. So if I got a thing of I now have COVID, everybody was getting 72-hour extensions because I haven't had it, but I could see how everybody around felt sick. Like, I'm not going to, you got to be realistic, right? So I will close out and unless there's some more questions.
No, thank you. This was very informative.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Well, good. And I'm excited to have it. I hope that Carol, now you are motivated by Danielle and Javier and you're going, yes, I am going to try to pick up a class.
Well, I decided to because I started looking at teaching positions and their descriptions and their requirements, and I was like, I need to teach. And even though I won't have the 2 years that a lot of the schools require, at least I have a year.
I think it's very good. And in the interviews, which is a whole nother one that Dr. Hawley-Bernardez is like the bomb at, I think we have a discussion coming up, don't we? That's scheduled.
I don't know.
You
if
would
it's about
send,
the-
oh, never mind.
that's the
It was a
committee.
planning meeting. It's
Yeah.
that planning meeting for it,
But we
for the
will be
job
planning
market
for the
committee.
second year students. So the second year students were job market committee is going to be meeting, and we're going to start getting ready to help you guys prep to be on the job market.
Yeah.
So Carol, I want to just kind of make sure it's 2 years post-master's field experience. So if you have just 2 years postmasters of experience just out in the field, that's what it means when it says 2 years experience. It's not necessarily 2 years teaching experience.
I think the one I was looking at was a school that I really wanted to get into, and they wanted you to have.
Oh, they want
Maybe I misread it.
specifically 2 years of teaching?
That was KU.
Usually it's just 2 years postmasters experience in the
So
field.
maybe I think I've misunderstood it then.
That's okay.
Being an alum of KU, I'm sure it was, we go all out.
Yeah,
That's
I went
why I
to
got my
KU.
master's. Did you know there's 2 of us here that got Dr. Falik?
Philly, yeah.
Mhm.
He got his doctorate at KU.
I got my master's from KU.
Did you? Me too.
Yeah.
Mine was a minute ago.
You've already aged yourself once in this, so
Yeah, but yeah, well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Not that everybody else isn't cool, but yeah, KU, hey.
Yeah, I had a
Rutgers,
really good
yeah.
experience with KU. They're very competitive.
Uh-huh.
I've heard good things about him. Well, great.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Phoenix, for talking with us tonight. And you guys were super excited about this next one. Let me pull it up real quick. I don't have the calendar in front of me. I think it's
April 27th,
yes,
authorship with Dr. Gallegos.
March 30th. Sorry. March 30th, there's the networking and academia one. And then April 27th is authorship. Both of those are going to be really important. So definitely mark those on your calendars. Tell your colleagues and your friends, and hopefully we'll see you guys then. Okay. Y'all have a
Wait.
good night.
Thank
sorry.
you.
Sorry.
I
Kath.
have to give my final plug. Y'all keep your eyes out in the next 2 weeks for email and regarding SWDE, Social Work Distance Ed Conference. Javier, you weren't on when I brought this up. I'm the chair for the conference. We run it. It's a national conference. And any of the OLU students that volunteer to serve as a room monitor, it's all virtual. What a room monitor means is basically you go into the room during the session ahead of time with the speaker and just help them get set up. And if there's any problems, contact. It's really super easy, but that means you get to attend the whole conference for free and can go to any sessions you want. And this is a great conference because everybody there is from a social work school. So if you want to start making connections,
it is awesome.
every presentation is by social work faculty from universities throughout the United States. So
awesome.
Keep an eye out. We
Thank
need you.
you.
We need your
Yes.
help.
All right.
Have a great evening.